Good afternoon. In this video, we're going to go over this week's options watch list. Before I get into the video, if you're not in the room, you can find the link in the description of the video and in my bio section of social media accounts. Also, please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. I don't see anything on the economic calendar this week. Nothing as far as no Fed or Yellen or anything like that. So we get some, CPI numbers coming up, inflation numbers coming up later on in the week. But I'm anticipating that SPY, well, we'll be ready for it on both sides. But a majority of the earnings, we still got some more earnings coming. But a lot of the big boys like Microsoft and Amazon and Facebook, the big players have pretty much already had their earnings, but we have other ones. So I'm going to watch and think that we're going to end up bouncing more. I mean, we did on the weekly reject the 20 EMA, and we are below the 20 EMA on the daily too, which usually means we could see more downside. But what I'm anticipating is that we're going to keep getting a push higher until we get FOMC. We have a small FOMC meeting next week, I think on the 16th, if I remember correctly. It's not a big one. It's just one where they just have just a small meeting, no Powell, no projections, nothing. But the one in March is the one that have projections. They have Powell. They have the actual threatening to increase rates. But whenever you have the big three, I like to call them the big three, when you have the projections, the speech, and the actual minutes, they used to be really big movers, but the last few times they haven't been. The ones that have been moving the most are the ones that are happening like this month of February, where there's no Powell and there's no projections. They just have the minutes. This is where they make their threats, they make their what they think they're going to do, and the market seems to react the most on these kind of days than on the big three, because for some reason, in my opinion, I think I could be completely wrong. I think they're going to make all kinds of threats the market's not going to like in February. Then when March comes, that they're going to backpedal and say, no, we're not going to raise rates. We're not going to do this. We're not going to taper, because they're going to come up with some kind of excuse, whether it's Russia, whether it's inflation. They're going to find some kind of reason not to do it, in my opinion. I could be completely wrong, so take it with a grain of salt. But I think that in February next week, they're going to make all kinds of bold claims, and market's going to freak out. And so I'm thinking we gap and grind, and we grind up this week going into next week's FOMC, and that's when we're going to see probably the next big pullback. But I could be wrong. If something happens with Russia, if there's an invasion with Russia, or China invades Taiwan, or something happens like that, the market obviously is going to freak out. So that's why you need to be in the room. Things can change just in a flash overnight. We could drop down 100, 200 points just because of Russia or something like that. So that's why I need to be in the room. But yeah, I'll be watching SPY on both directions. I mean, I'll be watching over 453, and I'll be watching into 443, 444. So I think that we end up going higher this week. I could be wrong, but like I said, I'll be watching it from both sides in the morning. That's why I need to be in the room, because I make my decisions based on how things look in the morning, and if any overnight news does end up having an impact on the market, and I adjust to that. But yeah, it gets over the 457, we could see 460, 465. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if we end up being up at the 475 all-time high again before FOMC. But we'll have to see if that happens. So some of the ones I'm watching for a bounce. Snap is one. I mean, it's already had ER, had a nice bounce, but it had a really, really strong ER, strong earnings, so I'm going to watch it for continuance. Obviously, you can pull back some right here, but this is where it had the last gap down from the previous earnings. I'm looking for a Snap to push back up to 60 again. Whether it will or not remains to be seen, but it did have a very good earnings weekend. And whatever has a strong earnings, like right here, it likes to consolidate and stay in this area, then go higher. So we had this type of move right here. So I'm expecting, this kind of move, probably bounce between 335 and 35 and 45, maybe even 50. So watch it over the high of 41. You could even say $40 and for a push to 41, 42, 44. 50 would be a pretty significant area psychologically because it's a nice big round number. So it could end up stalling out right there. Now it could end up dropping too because it is pretty far away from the RCT trend line on the hourly. But I mean, look how far it is from the weekly, and the weekly is just completely way off from that. And whenever it is, it eventually does manage to catch up to it. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be watching. Snap. Disney is another one. Now Disney's starting to have a little bit of a cup and handle right here on the hourly. You get the cup, you get the handle. So I'd watch it over, 144, 145. Then you get the 150 area, 155. Then you get 160. So Disney's hourly, daily starting to look pretty good. So I think that we could end up seeing a move out of Disney this week over 145. Facebook got hammered on earnings and obviously privacy issues, but it does not stay down that long. I mean, Facebook just makes too much money, so I think it's going to end up recovering. So I would watch it over 242 for push to 248. Well, 248 is going to be gap resistance, but this can quickly break through that. I mean, Facebook, the last time Facebook had a knife like this is, I don't know, back in COVID crash, and it recovered. Was this COVID? Yeah, this was COVID. Okay. They had the Ambridge Analytics fiasco too. So I don't know if that must have been longer than that. Was that here? I don't remember. But anyways, I expect Facebook to recover and probably be above 300 in the next couple of weeks. So unless the market does manage to end up crushing it. So yeah, I would watch it over 242 for push to 250. Gets over 250, it's got open air all the way to 290, 292, 295, so a 300 area. So it's got some area that it could really rip. So Facebook, hopefully the options won't be too expensive. But yeah, that's going to be probably one of the top watches this week. Microsoft does not like to stay under 300. Anytime it gets under 300, it quickly rebounds. And right here, I got under 300, bounced. Right here, I got close to 300, bounced. So watch it over Friday's high of 310. Push to 315, 320, 325. Obviously, all-time highs right around 350. So we'll have to see what happens with that with Microsoft. Anytime it gets to the lower killer channel on the weekly or even on the daily, it just bounces pretty good. So right here it did it here, COVID, and down here it did. So I do like that if it starts getting momentum, the market strong, Microsoft could have a nice little move. Plus you get an inverted head and shoulders. You get the left shoulder of the head and the right shoulder right here. So neckline right around the 315 area. So it could have a strong push. Netflix is another one that I like. It just got hammered on earnings and popped back. I rejected the 20 EMA a little bit. Got close to it, rejected it. So if it does manage to bounce, I would watch it over the 420 area. It's over 420, probably going to get pushed to 440, 460. If it gets to 460, it could reject, could stall out, or it could just end up ripping. So definitely keep an eye on Netflix. Roku started to show some signs of life. I mean, the weekly is just so beaten down. I mean, it's just crazy. I've been waiting for it to bounce here, and every time it starts to bounce, it gets shut down. So maybe it's time. I mean, look at the massive divergence going on the histogram. It's pretty much flat going up as it's making lower lows. So it almost looks like it's got an inverted head and shoulders right here. You get the left, the head, and the right. I don't remember. I remember seeing this one other time, and I don't really remember how histograms like pans out when it shows this kind of a thing right like this, because usually you just have divergences, and that's it. You rarely see like the three little inverted head and shoulders right here on the histogram. You rarely ever see that. I think I've only seen it one or two other times, and I don't really remember how it pans out. But in the RSI is still below 30 on the weekly. The MACD is still going down to 0%. I mean, and the histogram is staying flat, slightly going up as it's making lower lows. So I think Roku is going to end up having one of those $40 days, hopefully soon. We'll have to see if that ends up happening. So yeah, I would watch Roku over 162 for a push to 170. Then you get the 180, 190, 200 being a big psychological number. Now Roku is one of those stocks where it can go from, like right here, went from 330 to 100 points in 2 weeks, or even a week sometimes. So don't be surprised if you blink and it's up at 250 sometime soon, or even within a week it can go 100 points no problem on Roku. So Twitter is another one. I don't really like playing Twitter that much, but I'm gonna keep an eye on it. It's pretty much doing the same thing as Roku. Divergence going on, bullish divergence. The histogram is going up, it's just making lower lows. So I'd watch it over 30, 39, push to 40, then you got 45, and you got 50. Basically almost every dollar, but the $5 areas seem to be the biggest ones on the daily. But yeah, I would watch it every dollar, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42. And the range on the daily moves are usually like, I don't know, $2, $3. Low is 35, high. So yeah, $2 right there. This is, yeah, usually a $2 move. What's this one right here? 61. So that's almost a $3 move right there. $2 to $3 moves is usually an average range for Twitter. So yeah, that's all I'm going to be watching. So many stocks are so beaten down. I really don't want to look at anything on the short side. But if the market is weak and things look weak, one of the things I do like looking at is when BABA gaps up, it ends up gapping down. But we got BABA here with the head and shoulders. You got the left, the head, and right shoulder. But I can't imagine it going below 110. But you never say never on BABA. I'm not really gonna watch BABA, but I have like 12 tickers I always watch, and BA, BABA, Baidu, Netflix, Facebook, Tesla, Disney, Roku, Microsoft. I always watch the same 10, 12 stocks, and even if I'm not on my watch list, I still watch them regardless every day. So that's why I always have them up. In case they do, something happens overnight, because usually when you have BABA gapping up, you usually have a sell-off the next day. I do like those kind of moves on BABA, but that's going to do it for the watch list. We'll have to see what happens overnight and be there in the morning to see how the market looks and what I'm going to take and what I'm looking at. So that's why you need to be in the room, and that's going to do it. So thank you for watching.